Hey, everybody, welcome to the Approved Perspective podcast powered by Approved Social, sponsored by Approved Social. We are super pumped to have Tim Hyde with us today from Winmoreclients. Tim's been doing that for about 9 years, where he is helping people come up with a framework for predictable growth, pulling that from his profile and from his website. Definitely got to check them out. Looks like there's some really cool stuff that you're doing over there. Tim, thanks for coming on.
Man, it's great to be here, Preston. I appreciate the invitation.
Hey, once we got connected and we started talking a little bit about like what you guys are doing and what we're doing, and there's just so much that can be learned from you. And I think that we'd love to talk a little bit about that framework that you're talking about. But before we get into any of those things and the strategies and stuff that you're going to talk to us about today, tell me a little bit about how did you get in this crazy world of digital marketing and consulting, and like, what do you think about it today?
Well, I think if we go back now, I've kind of been in digital marketing in some form or other for 29 years. So if you count backwards, 29 years from 2023, that puts us at the advent of the internet, right, as a thing.
Basically, before digital marketing existed.
Before digital marketing was a name that we used, right?
It's true.
We had a thing, but it didn't really have a form. And likewise, the internet existed a little bit before, Tim Berners-Lee called it the internet, and everyone said that's a good name. Let's use that. Yeah. I actually found myself in IT at uni, using, I guess, what the sort of forerunner of the internet was. We'd have to dial into other universities to get resources, and text-based games on the computers across this this university network and stuff. But my first love is
the LAN parties.
The LAN parties, right? I used to sneak my mates into the workplace and play LAN parties at work on Saturday and Sunday. But I found, my first love was always entrepreneurship and commerce, I guess. And despite the fact I found myself doing IT, I graduated. I got into some IT roles. I think created first website in 95, end of 95-ish, give or take, but was doing a lot of sort of information management, right? How do we get all these different sources from different locations and bring them together for management to make decisions? Roll forward to the end of the 90s, and a mate of mine came to me and said, let's go and create this, website. We'd moved from text to this GUI interface, right? Thank you, Apple, for providing that. And, if you remember back, Microsoft Office, you could put onto 51, 52 floppy disks, little 3.25 inch floppy disks. And late 90s, we were, and I guess as a bunch of guys in technology, it was me and the guy who introduced me to this idea. And I think we had sort of 5 other mates sort of get into it. And we said, we were following technology forums. And I think technology forums in many ways were the advent of what we now know as social media. Okay, because all the techie guys would get on. We were, late 90s, of course, we were talking about anti-competitive practices from Microsoft and, the rise of Linux as an open source sort of thing. And I think if you look at how social media is this collaboration, right? That's almost come out of this collaboration in this community around technology and open source conversation. And we decided that we would create a website that had an open source conversation about the city in which we live. Right? So that's Canberra, Australia. And we got, back at the computer fair, we bought a bunch of parts. We stuck them together with my old man's angle grinder because they didn't quite fit properly. So we chopped bits off and put it together and created our first server and used some Linux software to create the first version of our, Canberra-based social media platform. And we started writing content.
Very cool.
All right, and putting it out there, and then we invited other people to write content, and they did, and organically this thing just sort of took off. And if you remember, about 23 years ago, year 2000 or so, people were sort of starting to use, the yellow pages. It got smaller and smaller and smaller, but the yellow pages became this thing that, it used to be the reference tome. If you need to look something up, it was the reference. It was the internet.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay? And it
That
moved
or
from...
if you were a real high roller and you were on the road, you could do 411, right?
I
Was it
know,
a
right?
411? Yeah, you could
That's right. You
call and
could call
say,
someone up and say,
"Hey,
hey,
I need to find someone," and they would use the phone book to find you the number.
that's right. And this phone book became this thing, right? And I recall, my IT role on the side, this is this thing that we were rolling out to everybody, this heavy ass CRT screen that would sit on your desktop and this computer box, and everyone was getting one of these things because it was improving work productivity. But what I was seeing, and I'm sure if you kind of remember back, that the Yellow Pages stopped being the reference tome on the shelf and it started being the desk riser.
Yeah.
Right? It was the thing you stuck under the monitor to bring it up to the right height. Right? And you had this
Oh, how
keyboard in front
times
of
have
you. So you
changed.
just like literally start typing into it to go, well, I need some information. And the information would pop up on the screen.
Mm.
And I think, we rode this sort of wave in terms of this transition of user behavior and human behavior about where we went and sourced information. And of course, businesses started to see this as well. So they're like, well, we need websites and marketing agencies through the noughties largely. We saw, LinkedIn sort of founded in 2003. Facebook was 2004, but didn't really get any traction, until 2006, 2007. But this wave of human behavior that I think everyone was starting to recognize that there was a different way to access information. And of course, we saw the first iPhone in 2007. And then, a raft of
And the
copycats off the
world
back of
is
that as well. Even BlackBerry, right? BlackBerry. And if you haven't watched the BlackBerry movie yet, go and watch it because it's very
Palm,
interesting. Right?
BlackBerry.
Palm and BlackBerry through that, it became a different way.
Man, I
of
was so
accessing.
excited to get my first Palm Pilot with colored screen. I mean,
know,
it
right?
was and it didn't even have, internet. It was just wireless every once in a while. Like you had to, and it was difficult to get it online.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I had a BlackBerry through the early noughties. And so that was the coolest thing ever. Right? I could use my thumbs to type out in this crazy amount of texts and emails.
Oh,
and stuff.
yeah.
And we were going through this period of rapid change, and I found myself, building this business on the side of my day job in IT project management.
So as you were going through this and sort of seeing the handwriting on the wall, you're seeing these sort of visible signs. Now that you look back, you go, okay, people start using the phone books, then they're putting them under their, they're on the desk, but now they're under there's something, and then now they're under the computer, and now they're freaking in the trash. Like how did you sort of go, wow, if I start to become a consultant or if I start to work inside of this new lane that's opening up for me, how can I start to do that? Because that was new, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It was new, right? I mean, we've gone through such a period of massive change, through the noughties. I think the realization for me was really, I didn't know what we would, I didn't know what we were doing. I think like many business owners, you're sort of at the forefront of cutting edge, whatever it is you do. And like, am I doing anything different here? But I reflect back and, pretty regularly. I mean, because we were, I think that we got to 25,000, the gigs that we would cover, on behalf of local museos. It went from free gig tickets to free gig tickets plus a case of, 6-pack of beer and then a case of beer and then 2 cases of beer. And we're like, oh, this is, maybe we should actually start charging for this thing. It's going to 25,000 people to 50,000 people to 100,000 people, I think we got to the point where, I mean, we're only a town of 400,000 people, which is not very big. But we would have 25 million visits a year out of 400,000 people.
Wow. So what was the name? What was the name of the?
It was called the Riot Act.
The Riot Act.
Right. We're still I mean, my state is called Australian Capital Territory, or ACT, and so it became a thing like Regional Information Open Talk as an acronym, but also the Riot Act is actually a bit of legislation that tells unruly people to disperse.
Yeah.
But this whole idea of reading someone the Riot Act and it had these all different plays, and throughout that I then started to have all the because we would work with marketing agencies, right? We had an audience. I thought we'll sell advertising, and we worked with a bunch of marketing agencies who were then asking me to come in and speak to their teams and saying, hey, can you tell us what this digital marketing thing is about? We don't really understand it yet. tell me how to leverage this digital marketing thing. And the real, if we flip to, I guess, the growth consulting stuff, the thing that I started to see a lot of, and certainly towards the end of the noughties, I guess.
Okay, and I just got to stop you real quick, Tim, because for the American audience, he's not saying the naughties, he's saying the 90s. The 90s. Is that right?
No, 00s. 2000.
Oh, the 2000s. There you go. Okay, even
I call them naughties.
I got it now. I love it. Okay, cool.
All right, 90s, noughties. I'm not sure what the teens are. 2010, 2020.
I got it. Okay, good.
Yeah, but the thing that I kept saying is that we would create awareness, and if we look at marketing as a thing, right? Marketing is not just about creating awareness, right? Marketing is about moving someone from the I don't know who you are to ultimately I'm a raving fan of you and your business. And this entire customer journey that I talk to my clients about a lot, and I know that you do as well. Not just how do I become aware of who you are and what your brand is. It's more than that. And we know that not all agencies will do all of that puzzle, and that's okay. They'll do different parts of it. But marketing is ultimately the, moving someone from unaware to raving fan. Right? Sporting teams do really, really well, right? We pay our favorite sporting teams money for the privilege of promoting them. Clever, right?
Yeah.
Your accountant kind of generally stops short of that.
Yes.
But that's a little bit like a piece of code, right? If I go back to when I was writing code in the 90s, right? 92, 91, 92, 90, it was very much the same, right? You start at a point in time, start at line 1, and you write code for all the different circumstances that code might face until it gets to line 78,000, whatever. And if it gets to a point where the code doesn't know what to do, the code breaks, and as an end user experience, we're left with the Microsoft blue screen of death, or we're left with a spinning wheel that doesn't, it doesn't load. That's what, as end users. And what do? We just go, okay, I'm going to bugger off and do something else.
Yeah.
Right? It'd be like, the first or second or third date you go on, and, so-and-so doesn't call you back and you don't call them back, and the relationship doesn't progress, and you go and do something else and they go and do something else. Right? But if we look at marketing in that context, if we look at marketing our businesses as a piece of code that goes from line 1 to line whatever, right? It's our job as business owners to make that code as flawless as possible so we get a really predictable outcome. Okay? That's what business is. It's creating that predictable outcome, right? And if we let it break, that's on us. It's not on our customers.
That's right. And I think that's where it comes back to as business owners, what processes did you put in place? What systems are you using? What is your team? How do they operate? What was your hiring process? It all sort of comes back to the structure, the planning, the processes that you put into place. And I think that's where someone like you can really provide a lot of value to folks who are business owners, who are that entrepreneur who has a lot of passion, they have a lot of drive and excitement, and they can make things happen. But when you can pair that type of a person with someone or something like a system, then they can go to the moon. That same person has the ability to achieve a hell of a lot more of success if they can do that. And I know for me, I'm that guy. I've got a lot of things. I got a lot of things going on. I'm doing stuff all the time, and it's taken me a lot longer to get to the place where I've been able to say, systematize this, process-based this, make this as efficient as possible for me, because I have to focus on other things that are more value-driven for my business. And, my team, it's amazing. My team and the systems that we put in place start to excel and succeed when I'm able to sort of let go of it a little bit. So do you have that experience? Do you see that?
Yeah, look, absolutely. I've got the same experience in my business.
Yeah.
And, if I look at all the businesses I've worked with over the last, 20 years in many ways, it's the same thing, right? It's not like the thing you do might be different. It might be a social media agency. It might be a plumber. It might be an orthodontist. Doesn't matter. Okay. You could be an engineering firm producing widgets. Ultimately, it's this, we get to this point where we think systems aren't important, right? And typically that's at micro business. It's all inside your head. You're hugely agile. If you think, this doesn't work for me, you can change it, like this.
Yeah.
But it's very difficult to replicate the same outcome. And if what we want as business is, if we want that predictability, if we want that controlled growth, right? If we want our business to provide us with more certainty, right? We get to this point where we go, I need to start systemizing something, right? And that's typical, and it's not, I would recommend, it's not how you have your team apply for leave. It's important, but less relevant than how you attract, convert, and keep customers.
Yeah, I mean, goodness, that is the key. And the thing about too, you said keep those customers. That's a hard one for folks. And it's not necessarily a hard one in the sense that if we provide good value and if we do good work for folks, they're going to stay with us. Likely, I will say there's some situations with agencies where someone might just take your ads that are performing well and go run them by themselves internally. It happens, folks. If you want to be a trusted agency and you want to get your campaigns out there to folks and you're going to give them access to those, then you got to understand that they might do that, and that's okay. They're more fish in the sea. Go move on to the next client who is going to appreciate you, and they're going to get better performance over time with you than those people are who are going to try to run your campaign forever. But keeping a client, keeping a customer, when you're talking about an agency or any business, it's so much more cost effective to spend money investing in keeping that client. And I know that I haven't done this as well as I'd like to, right? Because if you can put dollars and cents to the idea that, if I can get this client to sign with me for another 3-6 month extension of our contract, then boom, that's a way easier decision for them to make because I've already made them money than going out and trying to convince somebody who's brand new to me to become a new client. But at the same time, for some reason, business owners have a hesitancy to provide free value or to provide any sort of above and beyond measure to a client because they're worried they're going to get taken advantage of or scope creep or whatever. So you do have to balance that, but it's worth the investment, right? I mean, what do you find when you're talking about to these businesses? They go, okay, my lifetime value of these clients is really low. Like, I mean, is the first step for you to go, like, let's see what we can do. What's going on here?
I think the first step is always just find quick wins somewhere. But coming back to what we were talking about earlier, marketing is not just the attraction of clients. Okay. It's also what we do to keep them. And if we start viewing marketing like that, well, what is it that you can do to surprise and delight your clients once you've kept them? It might just be a check-in from time to time and say, hey, is everything going well? Right? Do the same things you did to win them win the business in the first place. And if you're an agency, give them a call and say, hey, what are your plans for the next 12 months? How can we support you in getting those? Right? Who else could I introduce you to help you grow your business? Right? Just being that hub. All right. And often, no man is an island, as they say, right? But if often just being that hub and say, hey, look, you're looking for investment. I know a guy. Can I make that introduction to you? Or, you need a new VA in your business. I've got a couple of people I can introduce you, could talk you through that process, right? Whatever it happens to be, or you've got a supplier that is a bit shaky, but let me see if I can sort of sort you out. Not just the thing that your business does for your client, right? What else can you do for them? There are some exceptions to that rule, right? If you're a funeral parlor, it might be a bit different. Okay, but if you've got a service that has a lifetime value,
that's awesome.
But look, dead people don't buy funerals; living people buy funerals, right? So, there's repeat business out of a funeral home as well.
There you go. You just need the wife of the deceased husbands, and that's it.
Yeah,
You're
okay,
good to
well,
go.
there we go. You know,
You get
if it's a
one
if it's a
person, and you
funeral
get
home,
4 or 5.
let's throw this one out there because it's a bit of a
You
sort
know,
of
what's funny though. You mentioned this, Tim,
area.
because I came up with a document. I worked with a lot of nonprofits, worked with a lot of for profits, both locally and nationwide, and it's funny to me when I talk to them. I go, "Hey, what is a strategy that you're currently implementing for this year? And what are the dates and the assignments and some of the things that you're like, what how many dollars are you looking to raise this year? Or if you're a nonprofit, or if you're a for profit, what's your goal, profit this year? Let's talk about some of the nitty-gritty so that we can actually come in behind and help support you with that. What I find though, Tim, and I'm sure a lot of people listening, is most of my clients don't have a plan in place.
Yeah.
They don't even have a strategy. They don't even know really how much they want to make or raise,
Yeah, really.
and I'll go, okay, we just need more. Okay, well, what does that specifically look like? By when? How are you going to be outreaching to those folks? What do you currently do? And what was the performance of that? What was the performance of the past campaign that you ran? Right? We've got to be able to build some of these things out. But I will say that document that I created like a spreadsheet and a sort of a document that guides them through how do you build out tasks and assign them to people? How do you set these goals? And how do you make sort of micro assignments and tasks to that too? It's been the number one requested document that I've ever created. And it was something that I just sort of whipped up together based on stuff that I do and based on stuff that I've seen other businesses do. And I think people don't have those plans in place. And so coming in and getting those in place is a huge part of the whole marketing world. And of course, keeping people.
Yeah. Look, I completely agree that, people don't have the plan. And again, just using the funeral parlor one, if you've got a plan to win the business in the first place, well, how do you keep that client? Could be just a phone call every 12 months later saying, hey, just want to check in. I know John died 12 months ago. Is everything okay with you? Here are some flowers on the anniversary of your loved one's passing. Something like that,
Yeah.
just could be, okay, well, they're now top of mind again.
Right.
And they can sort of make their recommendation that, this company actually really cared about me. And yes, it's got a sort of marketing goal behind it. And it's got a business growth goal, but it's actually just showing some care for somebody.
Yeah.
And so you're absolutely right. If people don't have a plan, it's very difficult to execute. You just try stuff for the sake of trying stuff. And marketing's expensive, particularly at the front end of marketing. Right? If we
And I guess
don't
what I
know
mean
what
too
it
with
needs
that,
to look, we don't know what success looks like. How do we know what we're doing is actually working or not? And so much of it. And there's a great saying from a US businessman and senator from I think it's 1886 is attributed to him, right? John Wanamaker. You can look him up if you want to.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And he says, half of my marketing is wasted. I just don't know which half.
Yeah.
And that comes down to it, right? That's what we mean by not having a plan. You can try lots of things, but if you don't know what's actually moving the needle and you don't review that and you don't put metrics in place to understand whether it's moving the needle or not, you will waste half of your marketing.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to be testing this and seeing what does perform best, And when I tested that strategy of sending that document out, people loved it. And it made them feel like I was investing above and beyond in them with a resource that I created for them that was perfect for what they wanted. And I even sat with them for an hour to walk them through how they could do this with their business and their team. By providing that value, it brings me top of mind to them, and it also shows that I care about their business in excess of everything that I'm being paid to do for them. Like, because obviously, me planning their business out and giving them a strategy for the year isn't what I do. I do digital marketing, but by helping them do this, they're happier and they're going to be set up for success. And ultimately want to keep me longer, right? If they have those plans in place. So tell me, let's get into a little bit about your business and what are your what's the niche that you're in right now? Like where do you focus in on?
I'm not working with, and this was a difficult question. I want niche you in. niche or niche.
Niche, whatever.
Not in industry. I prefer to work with, what I would call, high growth entrepreneurial companies. Right? They're usually about high 6 into 7 figures. Right? You've got a proven product, and you can deliver it. But you're at that point where you've got this beast to feed, and you need to kind of go, I need a little bit more control over what it is I'm doing, and I need to, I guess, build my plan a little bit better. And I've worked with everything from, pre-startups to clairvoyance to almost 10-figure medical imaging companies and mining companies, right?
Yeah.
So, and just about everything in between. But, I have a real passion, I think, for that sort of high 6-7-figure business who, is now knows what they're doing, sort of, right? But actually wants to make that real impact.
Dangerous. Those people are the dangerous ones.
Yeah, we're on the cusp of actual success.
And they're on the tipping point. They're on the tipping point one way or another in a lot of ways. Yeah. Usually, high risk type of folks who are pushing the needle, moving fast, a lot of great opportunity.
But they've gotten where they've gotten just by grit and determination and just doing stupid amounts of hours. Right? And I think it's very easy to lose sight of the fact that we got into business not for the business to rule us, but for us to rule the business. And it's only through systemization that we can get to that next level, that sort of 7 figures and 8 figures and beyond. And that's where scale becomes inevitable.
Right.
And you actually have this thing that is now serving you and the lifestyle and purpose that you wanted from it in the first place. And I think that's really important, right? It's business is there to serve you, not the other way around. And I'm reminded of Rich Dad Poor Dad. Robert Kiyosaki has got this great little matrix in it where he says, there's 4 quadrants, right? It starts with people start with having a job, right? We work for somebody else, and that's most people, right? And more power to them. And then we go from that and we replace one idiot who we see at work every day with another idiot who looks back at us, from the mirror every morning. And we own a job. And the vast majority of business owners, right? We're only talking 4% of businesses who ever make it to 7 figures and beyond, and 0.4 ever make it to, beyond 10 figures, beyond 8 figures, in revenue. That means a lot of people. We're talking tens of millions of business owners in the US today are not at that sort of 7 figure, not at that dream that we went into business in the first place with. Right? And it's largely because of that systemization and lack of plan about how we're going to execute, how are we going to get there? What are we going to do? How do we tell what's working and what's not? Right? And that's the person that I want to really help, because we deserve it for all our hard work. Right? We are the people who deserve it to move from that, owning a job to having a business. And that's that big transition. Jumping across that line is where we systemize, and particularly systemize, our sales and marketing.
Tim, it's funny, as I have these conversations with folks like you, high level people in business, who've been doing this for years, a lot of times in the digital space. It's interesting to see that there is a lot of crossover between sort of the mentality and the mindset that you need to have to be able to continue to move forward with the business and to grow it in the correct way, in addition to the strategies and the CRMs and the systems and things that you need to have in place as well. But there's something about business owners where you do have to go, okay, yeah, I'm leaving that corporate job where it's safe, but I'm moving into a position that could also be safe if I set it up correctly. It could be worse if I set it up incorrectly, or if I go into it incorrectly. It's like sort of choose your hard too, because that corporate job could also fire you at any time. Yeah. They have no, ideal.
There's no
They're
real
not going to
safety
keep
in
you
that.
forever. There's not a real safety in there either. So it's kind of like choose your hard there. But I've had conversations with so many people who it kind of comes back to what you just said about that.
Yeah, look, I would
So real
agree.
quick,
Business is hard, but look, I mean, I'm sure the numbers are very similar in the US as Australia. But a couple of years ago, I heard a statistic that suggested that the average business owner in Australia takes home less than $50,000 a year in income. And so that's about 35,000 USD, right? I suspect that's probably below the
oftentimes
the average
paying their
wage.
employees more than they're paying themselves.
Pay your employees first.
Yeah.
All right. Start reading Profit First from Mike Michalowicz, and you'll change your mind on that one real quick. But earning less than the average wage from having a job. And I think I spoke to you about this, pre-episode. When I first built my website, I thought I'm pretty tech savvy. I'll give that a go, and I spent 8 hours trying to put WordPress onto my server and couldn't work out what was going wrong. And I shot it to a developer I knew in the Ukraine, and he came back 30 minutes later and had fixed it, deployed the template, created my user accounts and everything, and charged me $7.15.
And that was, he took a nap, then did the work.
Oh yeah, he probably took a nap.
Then charged you.
I'll get to that. I'll have a coffee and
get it in the last 5 minutes. That'll be fine. Yeah.
Right? But this is a thing that we do. This is a thing that as business owners we do. We get in our own way of success in many cases because I think, I can't spend money on that. I've got to do it myself. And often when we start out, time is the resource we have to spend, not money. And we have those two resources. But time costs money. That was a massive lesson to me. And it just reminded me of, a lesson one of my early project management mentors, back when I, was in the corporate world, was that you are best served, as the CEO of your business. If you want to wear that hat, find really good people, give them the tools they need to succeed, and then get the hell out of their way. And the rule applies to business.
Hard to do sometimes.
Hard to do. Absolutely hard to do. It's not as easy as it sounds. Find really good people.
Yeah.
Give them the tools they need to succeed, and then get the hell out of their way.
Yeah. And we just had a podcast where we talked about hiring and there's a lot to what we're talking about here, everybody. So if you want to go back, look at a podcast where we can go deeper into the hiring process, what that looks like, what you should do, because just that alone is part of the finding good talent piece.
Yeah.
But you got to nail that down good in order to be able to find and trust that new talent. And then from there, you got to go into, now once I've hired the right person, or I think I've hired the right person, do they have the right systems in place and onboarding in place to move forward with that? Same with sales and growth consulting. So you do a lot of growth consulting, and you also have the CRM work that you do. Could you tell us a little bit about like those two areas and how those intersect?
Yeah, to me, it's the CRM is probably the brain of your business, and we see companies who have one scale faster. We see companies that don't have it, don't scale as rapidly. It's just this tool that'll help. It's a system, like any other system you have in your business, right? It's like your ad system that's being run by Approved Social. Your CRM system, right? If it's set up well and if it's used properly, right, rather than just left left out to go rusty and become expensive, helps you get organized with all the relationships that you need to manage in the business. Now, we know with absolute certainty that the bigger business you have, the more relationships you need to manage. Now, there's some really interesting studies by an anthropologist named Robin Dunbar, who says we can maintain 5 intimate relationships, 15 close relationships, and 50 casual ones, and so on. Right? But if we think about that in context of your team, right? If you've ever tried it, and look at, even if you have to think back to a corporate job, if you had one of those, your teams tended to break down into little cliques of 5 or so people, or 15 people at most. But even within that, there'd be little cliques of 5 people. right? Because we remember levels of intimacy. But as we grow, the trick to growing a business is to maintain more intimacy with more people. Okay. So
and how do you do that when you're scaling?
Well, you talked about before, if you want to look at how you keep clients, right? If you've got 100 clients, you can probably even pick 10 clients if you wanted to. If you've got 100 clients, guess what? They're going to start going away from you if you don't maintain a level of intimacy with them that they feel like they're important.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, if you've got a pipeline, try it sometime if you are doing it. If you've got a pipeline of 20 people and you're trying to manage that out of your inbox, your email inbox, it becomes really hard. Why? Because it's not set up to be organized like that to know where everyone is up to. And again, the closer we get to the point of sale, the more intimacy we need. The more they need to feel like you really care about their business. And if you don't have a tool to do so, right, to either kind of create leverage in organization or leverage in communication, you will not get to that level of intimacy that allows you to scale your business.
Mm-hmm. And do you have a specific CRM that you like to recommend, or does it depend upon the industry that you're working with?
A little bit depends on the industry.
There's just so many out there. Yeah.
I think there are like thousands, right? And, with Go High Level being able to sort of white label, there are probably more, right? I mean, ultimately it's Go High Level underneath all of them, but they,
Yep.
they're called all sorts of different things now. But, we're talking literally thousands of different CRM systems that are out there. The three that I work with a lot, Go High Level is one of them. I think it's a great tool. HubSpot, I do a bit of work with, and Keep, which were formerly Infusionsoft, do a lot as well.
Sure.
I tend to find myself working with those three most often, but I think I've maybe worked with 20 different CRM systems over time, and they're all largely the same. Okay, they're all going to capture information about your contacts. And I don't say customers, I say contacts with deliberate purpose, because you should be putting your staff in there, you should be putting your suppliers in there, and so on. It's going to allow you to store information.
It should be streamlining things more than just the customers.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
So I think think of it as customer brain. So if you put a note on a customer account, someone else can go into that, from your business, can go into that record and say, "Oh, I saw you talk to Jared last time, or I saw you talk to Preston, or I saw you talk to Sally, and this was the conversation you had with him." Right? Makes you seem like you care more about your customer because you've got that central record. It's not, Jared spoke to you last time. I don't know what the conversation was about, but let's have it again. Right? No better way to piss off your customer than have to do that and have them repeat themselves over and over again. You like repeating yourself with your kids. It just gets you frustrated after a while. So that's the first thing. The second part of a good CRM system is it will allow you to create workflows and automation based on certain triggers. Okay. So it might be, if I put a note on an account, it waits a week and then raises a task for me to follow up on that note. Or it advises someone in the business of a thing that needs to happen, or adds them to my Christmas card automation, that waits now, as we record this on the 28th of October, waits a couple of, waits 6 weeks and then, shoots off a fulfillment list to a, supplier, a fulfillment house, right, to send Christmas cards out. It could be anything. But I want to do the automation side of a workflow is trying to create leverage in that communication and customer experience.
And so, in your your opinion, your experience, it's not necessarily the CRM that you use, although there are some better than others. Yeah. High Level being one that we all know of, and is a great one. But it's more, do you have one at all? Because ultimately, they all are going to help you achieve better success than getting into your inbox every day and using that, or using a Google Doc, or using something like that. But I also think that there's a number of businesses that wait on CRMs. I was one of them, and I've have tried different CRMs, and some of them are super complex and to just take up too many weeks of time to even set up as a business owner. And then when they are set up, you got to add tags to 17 different contacts to make sure that it works the way it's supposed to work. Whereas, something like an Infusion Keep or Go High Level or one of these other tools, it's a little bit more intuitive, a little bit easier to use for those things. If I was going to lean towards one, I'd probably lean towards one of those three that you mentioned actually as well.
Yeah, I think
but it's more
like,
that you have one at all, right?
Yeah, like to draw a metaphor that I think people should really resonate with. There are fit for purpose tools, right? So if I wanted to drive from Canberra to Sydney today, I could go by wheelbarrow if I wanted to. Okay, I could hire someone off TaskRabbit and get them to push me to Sydney in my wheelbarrow. Okay, and yes, I would get there and I'd be able to do work on the way and enjoy the view and all sorts of stuff, right? But it'd take me a time, right? If I bought a car, I would get from point A to point B faster and probably a little bit more comfort. Although I could put some cushions in my wheelbarrow to, make it a bit better. I would get from point A to point B more comfortably. Now I can choose to drive the car myself, or I could pay someone to drive it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's the thing, right?
And if you're getting somebody to drive it for you, then you get to work the entire time. You get to be more productive. You get to enjoy the scenery. You relax. You could sleep. Whatever. Okay. Yep. You get to enjoy.
Now the metaphor here obviously is I'm having someone else do the thing, right? Or I'm having to build the car myself and configure it and then drive it. But if I never drive the car, never put it together, never get insurance or registration or learn how to put gas in the tank, my car will sit in the driveway and it will go rusty. And eventually my wife will get really pissed off at me and say, what are you keeping that piece of shit car in the driveway for? Can you get rid of it, please? It's just expensive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. But here's a tool that can help me get from where I am to where I want to go faster. Now, if we think about that in business context, right? Your investment into your CRM and other tools, right, require not just getting the parts, it requires putting it together and actually using it. And when we do those three things, right, and keep it maintained, right, it will help us get from where we are in our business to where we want to go faster than we'd be able to do it themselves. And if we have someone else do it, we can enjoy the scenery along the way.
Right. And Tim too, like along this journey, as you're a business owner, I'm sure you've experienced this too, getting started, you might have a lead come in through your inbox or through a business card that you met at some, networking event. You go home or they say, hey, follow up with me in 2 weeks. I think I might be willing, have the money at that point to move forward with this new marketing campaign. Great. Yep. We'll follow up. And then you forget because you lost the business card or the email got buried because you just got 1,000 more since then, right? Without something like this in place, missing out on deals has got to make a huge difference. And I'm sure that you could probably look at and equate dollars and cents to people who do and people who do not have a CRM just from the sales side of things. And that's not accounting for how does this streamline your team's efficiency and your efficiency in other areas like dealing with your clients that you already have. I think that's pretty interesting. But so when you're looking at businesses that often face like these sort of unique growth challenges, right? They're trying to figure out how to hire a salesperson or do whatever. What are some common strategies or advice maybe that you would give to someone to help them in their kind of growth right now? Like if you had 2 or 3 tips that you could give someone right off the bat, what would it be?
I think if you don't have a CRM, get one. Okay, it is not and definitely don't look at it as an expense. Look at it as an investment, right? I think you've got to you make a really good point with that thing, right? I mean, Salesforce have some stats that says you close 50% more business at 33% less cost, right? And I know HubSpot publish some similar stats every single year. I want to give you an example of this. Right? A few years back, I was with a friend at a conference, and she was running a podcast called The Business Experiment. And there were three of us, and we had three different things. I think there were about 250 people at this conference. One of the three of us was just going to sit there at a desk, and she would have people approach her. That was the control, right? Not be very active, not seek opportunity, right? Not necessarily invited either, right? And she, I think, collected 5 business cards and got no appointments. Jemima, that was Siobhan. Jemima, it was a bit of chameleon, right? As an improviser, she was going to be the one who, it didn't matter what you did, she was an active buyer. Okay, so if you sold carpet, she was like, "Oh my God, I'm here for 5 days. I've got an apartment," and she did actually have an apartment, so that part was at least legit. "But I've been looking for someone who can help me with new carpet. Can you give me a call and come and give me a quote? Right, here's my card." Right, it was kitchen utensils, it was life coaching, it was postcards. It didn't matter what it was. Right? Yeah, she was buying. She was a buyer, and she gave out 82 cards over the course of the 2-day conference. Right, and said, "Please call me. I am a buyer for your product or service." All right. Now I took a different approach. All right. I was a little bit more active. So people I met, I exchanged business cards, but I automated my follow-up process. It wasn't me. I literally took a business card, took a photo, added it into my CRM, and had an automated appointment setting process that followed up. Said, "It was Preston. It was great to meet you at the conference. Hey, just thinking, I'd love to catch up with you. Blah, 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 blah." Okay. And then it had a couple of other follow-ups on that. Have a guess how many appointments I already said to you, right? Siobhan got no appointments at all. Here's the interesting one, all right? Out of 82 business cards, how many people do you think followed up Jemima to sell her their products?
I mean, it's got to be, I would imagine, pretty high because everybody wants to sell their stuff.
Well, you'd hope so, right? She got one Facebook friend request out of 82 people.
Oh my gosh.
One Facebook friend request.
Wow.
Okay. So let's look at how much of a difference that control case made to automating a follow-up using a CRM and some workflow, right? That we pre-designed. Out of 17 business cards, how many meetings do you think I had? Right? 16.
30%.
So no.
16. Wow.
16 out of 17, right? So what's that? 92%.
A lot of that's probably you had that immediate response. So they remember who you were. They remember that conversation that you had with them because you're literally scanning it, putting it into the system, and it's ready to go off and follow up with them. I mean, in the digital marketing space, and you work with businesses like this, when a client comes to us and they go, "Well, I'm following up with the leads, but they're not good customers. They don't even remember your ad." I said, "Well, do you follow up with them within the first 30 minutes? Even 5 minutes is best."
Text
No, it's
saying,
taking us a day or two. Well, no wonder they're not. Yeah, no wonder they're not converting with you because they've forgotten they even did that. Life moves fast.
So that CRM, that workflow, not only just allows you to create leverage. Right now, if Jemima had one, she would have obviously booked a lot more appointments. But just having that system in place does two things. A, gives us massive leverage in time. Right? Clearly, the results are demonstrated. It gives us massive leverage in time. But the most important thing is that it allows us to create a baseline of success, and then allows us to get out of the doing part of it and start working on it to see if we can optimize it for better results.
Yeah. So you got to get out of working in the business. You got to be able to start working on the business. And what Tim means by that, people, if you haven't heard this concept, is when you're starting out, you're working in the business. You're doing everything. You're wearing all the hats. You're daily answering client communication. You're daily sending out management tasks to your team. All of this stuff is you working in the business. You're even going out and trying to find new business. But what you have to learn to try to do is separate yourself from that, empower your team with good quality tools like a CRM, and then move yourself out so that you can look at it from a different perspective and go, here's the weaknesses. Here are the areas that I need to shore up in my business, but I can't see those when I'm working in it. I have to be able to look outside and go, here's what's happening. Right. And I think that a lot of businesses and even larger businesses, even entrepreneurs who are really doing well in business, are still stuck in that phase of working in the business. And if they could just get out of it, they'd be able to see probably 2-3x times results quickly simply from that process. And I think that's one of the things that you're trying to help empower people to do with these growth strategies. Now, we've talked a little bit about your strategy.
Take a holiday and then go see what breaks. Take a holiday and see what breaks. Right? Find out where your team had to come back to. And ask the question that you went there.
It's right. And it's funny, Tim, I stepped away from my business to go work on a project for a while with one of my customers. And when I did that, my team started to really shine. They started to really perform well, and they learned and grew way faster than when I was doing the work inside the business.
Yeah.
When I was outside of it and I was doing other things, they excelled, they grew, the processes became better, they became theirs too. They sort of started to own that stuff rather than simply utilize it. So that's great. Okay, cool. So we're talking about some of these strategies. We've already been talking about 51 minutes. We didn't even get into our news segment.
Let me give you the
Let's
next
do a quick news.
Let me give you the next two real quick.
Give me something, then I want to do a news segment, and then we're going to go from there.
Yeah. The next one, probably next two. What gets measured gets managed, right? So start measuring the results, right? So if you're running a Facebook campaign, go, well, if I do this, this is what I get as a result. If I do that, this is what I get a result. Okay, that'll allow you to dial it in. And probably the third thing is a little bit different, right? Start looking at other businesses and the experience you get from them, and go, what are they doing there, and how can this feeling that I'm having from this particular business either apply or not apply to what I'm doing. So I know when you go into a lot of Japanese restaurants, for example, the chefs will all welcome you into the restaurant. Okay, and it kind of makes you feel nice. All right. In your plumbing business, what can you do to make people feel welcome when they come in the proverbial front door? Southwest Airlines.
Something that differentiates you.
Right? Do amazing customer service. Right? They're known for it. What do they do? Right? Start pulling it apart and going, okay, well, how did this experience at this particular point make me feel? Have I already paid for a ticket, or have I not? Am I now walking onto the plane, or am I finishing up the experience? I mean, when you leave the plane, they say thank you, thanks for flying with us today. Right? When a client leaves your business, do you thank them? Probably not. Okay, is that something that you could put into your business to maybe get them to fly with you again?
Okay, it's funny how those things work. We've all been those are great tips. I appreciate it. Sorry to cut off those last two. We've all been to businesses, whether it be a restaurant or something, where you walk in and they go, "Hey, we'll be right with you. Thanks for coming in. We'll be right with you." And you go, "Okay, cool." They acknowledge that I'm here. They know that I know that they're working on some other folks right now, and they're going to get to me. And then how often have we been to other businesses where you walk in and the person ignores you completely, and you don't even know if they're aware you're there, or am I in line? Am I waiting for something? Do I need to go up to them? It just feels weird. So having something like that, like you said, to differentiate yourself is a huge one, but it's also a low-hanging fruit thing, people. Sometimes it's just as simple as being kind and thinking about the other person. That's really, let's not make it too much rocket science in some of those situations. Okay, so we've got a lot going on. We went through so much cool stuff here today. I love it. Now, before we go, tell us something that you want to share with our audience that maybe they should go visit from a resource that you have, or something that you want to plug. We'd love to hear a little bit about something that we should maybe go read, listen, download. What do you got?
Well, people are more than welcome to sort of subscribe to my podcast as well. It's called More Clients, Less Effort. I know a lot of interviews like this where we actually look at the systemization of sales and marketing and what people are doing to create more leverage. You're always welcome to visit the website. We got
maybe they can even go find an episode that like is specific to their industry, right? Or something
there'll be a bunch. So, we've done everything from I think up to sort of 17, 18 episodes, as we record this at the moment. I've got another 10 in the pipeline, currently in production. So there's a few episodes there. And again, we're trying not to necessarily look at the specific business industry, looking at the systems they're using, right, to bring people in. So I'm trying to, play that a little bit higher level sort of thing. And there's a ton of resources on the website as well. So winmoreclients.com.au. I'm sure you'll put that in the show notes, Preston. And there's a ton of resources that people are sort of welcome to download, go into CRMs and systemization and some of the strategies that we use, and even some of the systems that we use.
Very cool. Okay, cool. So you can go see some information there behind the scenes, some tools. You heard him talk about some tools. If you forgot, scroll back, take a listen again to some of this. There's definitely some good nuggets of information that we've talked about. It's amazing these conversations that we've been having have been full of not just information about what we thought we were going to talk about. Usually it's going off into directions that business owners of all types can connect with. And I think this is a massive issue with a lot of businesses. The organization around your customer data, your sales data. Tim's the guy. He's got a lot of information on this. Go give him a check out. See what's going on there. Well, Tim, thank you so much for coming along. Is there any last thing that you'd like to share with our audience?
I think the only thing I want to leave with our audience, is probably that it's really up to you, right? You can decide to, implement some of this stuff or not, right? And that's up to you. But if you do, you'll change your world.
Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree with that. Well, guys, this episode is sponsored by, as all, Approved Social. If you haven't checked it out yet, approvedsocial.io. We are the first collaborative feedback and approval and publishing engine for digital marketers. We've actually built a case study that shows we've reduced time to get ad campaigns live by up to 40% for people using Approved Social. And so people, that's saving you time and making you money at the same time. So we'd love for you to go check it out. If you want a special code, let me know. I might even be able to give you 60 days free. All right, guys. Thank you so much, Tim. I appreciate you, sir. We'll have you on again, hopefully soon.
Thanks, Preston.
Bye, everybody.